So you guys are all, of course, aware of total doofus and moron Tomi Lahren. We actually talked about her going after Bernie Sanders yesterday, but it turns out there's actual video footage of her going after Bernie Sanders. And what's really annoying about watching these videos is that the way that she speaks to the camera is really frustrating and very, annoying, because it's like she has this really weird emphasis on every word, and it's almost like she's trying to yell. But it's like, dude, the camera's right in front of you. You have a microphone. We can hear you. And you sound really pretentious when you're doing that. It doesn't come off as some sort of good anchoring or some sort of, being a good news host or anything like that. You just come off as super pretentious and just overall annoying, because that's honestly what you are. And the delivery of it is really horrible. But there's video footage of this. She's going to go on like a 4-minute winded rant that's unbelievably stupid. Honestly, I'm never surprised at the level of stupidity that comes from Tomi Lahren. But there's just so much garbage in this, long-winded little rant that she does that it's really hard to keep track of all this, man. Check it out.
News: Bernie Sanders is running for president again, but this time he's not the only open socialist in the Democratic Party and far from the only radical in the race. Hi, I'm Tommy, and I have some final thoughts. Well, it's official, folks. The OG proud Democratic Socialist is running for president in 2020. I call him Bernie Carry the One because, like any socialist, his math never really makes sense. But what is he most proud of? Bringing socialism and big government more mainstream.
In a sense, this campaign, John, is a continuation of what we did in 2016. You may recall, that in 2016, many of the ideas that I talked about, Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, making public colleges and universities tuition free, spending at least $1 trillion in rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, criminal justice reform. All of those ideas, people will say, oh, Bernie, they're so radical, they are extreme. The American people just won't accept those ideas. Well, you know what's happened in over 3 years? All of those ideas and many more are now part of the political mainstream, and a majority of the American people now support them. So what this campaign is about is understanding that 3 years ago, we began the political revolution. Now it's time to complete that revolution and to take that vision and implement it into reality.
When you hear a proud socialist talk about completing the revolution, run for the hills. What's scary is he is exactly right. He did bring all of that radical crap to the mainstream and to the forefront, raising the minimum wage, open borders, job-killing climate change initiatives, free health care, free college, basically free everything. He brought that to the main stage in his late 70s and made it cool. And thanks to Bernie, we now have to deal with this dimwit. But here's the problem with his free everything policies and big government love affair. It will undo virtually every accomplishment made by the Trump administration. Taxes will go up, regulations will be reinstated, borders will become even weaker, personal independence and liberty down the toilet. That agenda, modeled after socialism, doesn't work. The term democratic socialist itself is an oxymoron. Democratic and socialist do not fit together, and they never will. Know the problem with making everything free? It's not free. It's not free if your tax-paying neighbor has to fund it. The well-meaning morons who support Bernie can't wrap their minds around it. Well, put down the weed and pay attention. There is no such thing as a free lunch. If someone like Bernie tries to convince you it's possible, understand this. The promise of free things and shared burdens are the cheese and the socialist trap. With capitalism, you, the individual, have the cheese. Yeah, you have to give up some of it in taxes, but you still keep the bulk of the cheese, and you can use and spread that cheddar the way you want to. Not so with socialism. The government, the often very corrupt government, takes all the cheese and reallocates it the way those in power see fit. And guess how that turns out? How did one of the world's wealthiest countries descend into a cesspool of poverty, crime, hunger, and high inflation? Socialism. That's Venezuela for you. But capitalism works. Need an example? Bernie Sanders, the man, a career politician and a millionaire. How? Capitalism. Bernie also has several homes. How? Capitalism. Bernie also has lucrative book deals worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. How? Yes, capitalism. Yet, he thinks we should scrap the economic model that afforded him all of that in exchange for a model that is currently ravaging Venezuela. I think the hell not. Bernie, good luck in 2020, bro. You'll likely have much more luck now that Hillary isn't rigging the whole thing, and that's the scary part.
All right, so we start off with something really stupid. Bernie Sanders isn't actually a socialist. He's a social democrat. Now, part of this is his fault, but if anybody really knows their political terms and is really a serious political, person who knows about the real definitions of political theory and terminology, which is very important in my opinion, you would know that the definition of socialism is the workers owning the means of production. So just think about, people who work in, whatever industry own the businesses that they work in. So just think of worker co-ops, worker cooperatives, where the people who work in it own it. They all have essentially the same power. They all call the shots together, and that's how they run those things. So Bernie's not a socialist. He's not calling for the means of production to be obtained by the people working. Not calling for the workers in everywhere to I don't even know if he's advocating anywhere. I haven't even heard him advocate of any, sort of worker cooperatives or like even pushing for that. I haven't even heard him do that. So I don't even know if he supports that or not. And then this thing that, he's supposedly radical. Like, is it really fair to call Bernie Sanders a radical? Is that really a legitimate analysis and a legitimate claim that we can take seriously? Because if you're going to call Bernie Sanders a radical, you have to call every other, modern industrialized nation radical. For context, every other modern industrialized nation has one form of universal healthcare or another. They don't have the same system, but they have some system that covers all of them. So Canada's system is vastly different from the UK system. So, and here's the thing. The argument we should be having is not whether or not we should have a universal system. The question should be which one. Should we have the UK system where the government runs the hospitals, or should we have the Canadian system, which is essentially a Medicare for all system? Which one should we have? So that's the debate we should be having, not a debate about whether or not we should have universal healthcare in the first place. So Bernie actually tweeted this out. I saw a tweet from him saying, people say I'm a radical. I think that we should have healthcare as a right for people and that education is also a right. Like, wow, call me crazy, which it's not crazy. And the numbers on this, and Tomi Lahren goes, really, Tommy, you want to teach us about math? Like, what? Huh? Like, do you understand how embarrassing you look trying to put yourself in a position like that? Who is going to learn any math from Tomi Lahren? We can barely, I can barely watch a 4-minute clip of hers because of the, massive rampaging stupidity that exists in these unbelievably ridiculous clips. But she's here to teach us math, apparently. But I'll give you some numbers. You're looking at a couple ways to fund universal college. All it costs is about $80 billion a year. The recent military budget increase we had was about, I can't remember if it was $70 billion or $80 billion a year, which totals to $800 billion over 10 years. If you were to just reroute those funds, you fund free college for 10 years. Or you can do 1% Wall Street speculation tax, which will raise up the brunt of those costs. So that's really easy. Free college education is nothing. Like when you're talking about government spending, we spend that on the military budget like that. We just can't do it like it's nothing. We never ask that question when it comes to college. Then, you're talking about Medicare for all. We save over $2 trillion over 10 years is how much is saved if we go into a Medicare for all system. So there's some more numbers there for you. And then he's advocating for, upping infrastructure. Infrastructure, by the way, is not supposed to be a partisan issue. Infrastructure is supposed to be a bipartisan issue. That's not supposed to be a political issue. Well, both sides are supposed to be like, yeah, dog, we all support investing in our own nation. That's how you make your nation better. you claim to be trying to make America great again. If you want to do that, let's get a jobs guarantee. Let's have that. How about that? We have all the jobs guarantee is, by the way, because people are too dumb to even know this. All the jobs guarantee is just infrastructure to the max. So the government just spends money on creating jobs, which is what infrastructure is. Building bridges, building infrastructure, repaving roads and shit, potholes, all of those kinds of things. So a jobs guarantee is a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. It's just infrastructure on roids, basically. You're taking, take infrastructure, like go Super Saiyan 3, and there you go. Like, that's it. It's not that, like, crazy of an idea. I don't even think people know what a jobs guarantee is. I don't think they draw the connection or anything like that. And then she says democratic socialist is oxymoronic. What? What are you talking about? How is it oxymoronic? If anything, socialism, the whole point of socialism in theory, at least, and what it was in somewhere like, anarchist Spain, which they weren't democratic socialists. George Orwell was, but the nation wasn't. But democratic socialism is literally taking the principles of democracy and putting it in place in the workplace. So if you want to ask somebody who's really taking the democratic principles, it'd be the Dem Social. I'm not even a democratic socialist, but they're advocating, hey, you know what? We love the democratic aspect of our government so much. Why don't we transfer that and apply it to our economic system too? Why not? How is that oxymoronic? How is it oxymoronic to have a democratic government and to have either, I don't know whether or not, I think it would be a direct democracy, and then it would be a socialist economy, which is just applying democracy to the economic system. It's not oxymoronic in the slightest. And then she goes on her dumb, spiel about how there's no such thing as a free lunch or whatever. When we say free, we mean A, at the point of access, or B, for the person who's receiving it. So a free lunch is free for the person getting the lunch. That's what we mean by free. We know that it doesn't mean that no one's paying for it, you diphthong. That's not the fucking point. The point is it's free for the person getting it. It's frustrating how stupid this is. And I think Milton Friedman would say crap like this too. It's like, dude, that's not what the hell we mean. And it's become a meme now where I can't even take it seriously anymore. Like, seriously, we're talking about free at point of access, free for the person receiving it. So if you are going to college, your college is free. Then when you get a job, you pay taxes, and then your taxes reroute to funding the next people going to college. This is not some super high level quantum mechanics, quantum loop theory or string theory, and there's none of that, dude. This is basic elementary type thinking. You have free at point of access college. When you get a job, you pay taxes, and you decide, hey, you know what? I think it's more important that we fund college education for the people in our country because it betters our economy because more people pay more taxes in, and people are less likely to be in poverty. And then I take money that normally would be rerouted to the military budget and instead place it in benefiting our own people in the United States. It is very, very basic. It's not very complicated. It's very, very, and then she brings up some dumb cheese analogy. Save your analogies. I hate analogies with a burning passion because they're virtually never accurate. And that one is stupid. Cheese, whatnot. What? And then you're trying to be like, oh, Bernie wants to take all the cheese and spread it. He's not even a socialist. He's not even a socialist, man. Get rid of this garbage, man. And then the Venezuela and the three houses. And I already went on a rant about the three houses thing. It's just, he has two residencies because he has to as a congressman because he's two places to work. He's got two locations for his occupation. And then he had one that his wife inherited, a house that his wife inherited. So that's bullshit. Him being a capitalist wanting a beefed up welfare state is not in any way contradictory to him getting money from book deals or whatever the fuck. And then this has nothing to do with Venezuela. And the minute you invoke Venezuela, I just laugh, because I don't even need to rebut that. Like, well, what is the point? And I'm gonna finish this off by saying this: she's scared, as you just saw there. She's afraid because she knows that the positions that Senator Bernard Sanders has been championing for decades upon decades have now become extremely popular. And by the way, I actually forgot one thing to mention. She at one point had said that he's going to undo everything that the Trump administration did, as if that's the bad thing. Like, what? How's that a bad thing? That's an amazing thing. That's a beautiful thing. How amazing would it be for, Bernie Sanders to be the one to be able to undo all of Trump's toxic garbage and then replace it with some good stuff, free college and Medicare for all, etc., etc. So again, man, she's scared, dude. She's scared. She is really scared.